What's going on, New York Mets fans? If you believe that term, where there's smoke, there's fire, we're starting to get more and more hints of Tarik Skubal possibly getting traded from the Detroit Tigers. They are handling this thing completely wrong on their part. I want to show you guys the article that Jon Heyman said today regarding the Mets and Yankees discussing with the Tigers regarding a trade for Tarik Skubal, what the asking prices were, how the Mets and Yankees balked at those deals, and why I believe even more that Tarik Skubal will be traded before opening day after his arbitration case, which we will also get into, and that will prove even more that he will be dealt before opening day. If you guys are into these kind of videos, trade rumors, free agent rumors, it's all rumors until everything's official. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, especially for New York Mets content. I am a New York Mets fan, but I will be discussing the Yankees in this deal. I want to show you guys what the type of trade packages that the Yankees would offer and the trade packages that the Mets could offer, even after the Mets gave up 2 of their top 5 prospects in the Freddie Peralta trade. So we get the news today from Jon Heyman, the Scott Boras shill. He puts all that information out. Who does Scott Boras represent? Tarik Skubal. We get the article today that the Mets and the Yankees spoke to the Detroit Tigers, and both teams balked at the asking price. The Detroit Tigers should not be faulted here for asking for the sun and the moon for a 2-time Cy Young Award-winning lefty pitcher who is set to hit free agency after the 2026 season. What the Tigers should be at fault for, and then we go back to the Dodgers ruining baseball, but it's truly teams like the Tigers, and it's teams like the Brewers, and it's these other teams that don't spend money on the talent that they have that are truly ruining baseball. You have a 2-time Cy Young Award winner at your disposal. You have the 3rd richest owner in the entire sport, and he doesn't want to pony up for the best pitcher in baseball in Tarik Skubal at only 29 years old. That is absolutely pathetic. That's what's ruining baseball, not the LA Dodgers. Yeah, the Dodgers we like to pick on, but it's teams like the Tigers with the richer owners that are ruining this sport by not spending money on their own players. That's how you get teams like the Mets, you get teams like the Yankees, you get the Dodgers involved in these super teams because they are going to take the scraps that the other teams don't want to pay for. When I say scraps, I obviously mean all-star caliber players. But Tarik Skubal is not the type of guy that you go out and you trade in his prime. The reasoning the Tigers are doing it because they don't want to pay him. So let's get into the report that came out today first with that Jon Heyman put out today regarding the Mets and Yankees discussing a Tarik Skubal trade. So Yankees and Mets drop pursuit. Now, don't believe that they dropped the pursuit. I don't believe that for 1 minute. Like I said in the beginning of this video, where there's smoke, there's fire. You're starting to see more inklings of these reports coming out, especially after the Freddie Peralta trade. You're starting to see more and more reports come out about Skubal, and you're going to see more and more reports come out about his arbitration case, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes. Yankees and Mets backed away from a trade discussion for Detroit's 2-time Cy Young Award winner after realizing the Tigers wanted too much in return, according to Jon Heyman. Scott Boras was locked in an arbitration case with Detroit, seeking $32 million. I'll get to that in a minute. Ranks as baseball's number 8 player and remains a rental through this season. Detroit pushing for another playoff run with recent acquisitions like Kenley Jansen, Kyle Finnegan. They will hold firm. And if you believe that the Detroit Tigers are not going to trade Tarik Skubal, I have a bridge to sell you in Fort Lauderdale, because it would be one of the gravest mistakes for the Detroit Tigers to not trade Tarik Skubal. Okay? If you're not going to extend him, let me reiterate that. If you're not going to extend Tarik Skubal, it would be one of the biggest mistakes in your franchise's history to not trade him at his absolute peak. And his absolute peak is right now. He's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner coming off of a Cy Young season, back-to-back Cy Young seasons. You could get the earth, the moon, the sun. You could ask for whatever you want, and you'll have multiple teams bidding for him. You won't have a ton of teams bidding for him because a lot of teams are not going to give you give up their farm for the rental. And when I say farm, like I spoke to when the Freddie Peralta deal, the Mets gave up their 2nd and 5th overall prospects. If you want to trade for a guy like Skubal, You could take that top 10 list of your farm system, and you could take about 4 or 5 of those guys immediately off your board. Immediately off your board. Plus others, I would assume. So let me get to the arbitration thing that I wanted to show you guys as well, which is why even more that I think Tarik Skubal will be dealt. And so we go to this. Tarik Skubal's arbitration hearing is scheduled for January 26th and February 13th in Arizona after failing to reach a deal by the 8th. Skubal filed for a $32 million record arbitration deal, while the Tigers are countering with $19 million. Okay? This is a record gap that it says. The $13 million difference is the largest in salary arbitration history. If a settlement is not reached before the hearing date, a panel will choose either between a $32 million deal and a $19 million figure. Skubal is eligible for free agency after this year. Despite the gap, Boras indicated that both sides remain open to negotiations. Obviously, Boras is going to say that, but that being the biggest gap in arbitration history it's going to rub somebody the wrong way when that thing is agreed upon. If they can't come to a number before that arbitration date is reached, before the deadline is reached, he's either getting $19 million this year, which the Tigers would absolutely love, or he's going to get $32 million, which the Tigers would not love at all. Although they have the third richest owner in the entire sport, none of this should be a problem. You have a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. Give him the money that he needs. Give him the money that he deserves. Okay? If Skubal gets to that $19 million number and the arbiters actually give him that money, the $19 million, I don't know if there's going to be some sort of bad blood. I don't know if Skubal decides, you know what, screw this. I'm not going into spring training. But you don't know what's going to happen because you can't predict the bad blood that people might feel. If Skubal doesn't get the number that he wants, okay, you can't risk going into the 2025 season, the 2026 season, getting yourself hurt. You could blow your arm out. You could end your career, and now you get nothing. That's why he wants the $32 million at least. And the Tigers are just balking at that. They don't want to pay him at all. So if they don't trade him by opening day, there's multiple scenarios to look at here, okay, from the Tiger side of things, which is why I think Skubal gets traded ultimately by opening day. If the Tigers lose the arbitration case, that's option number one, is the Tigers lose the arbitration case. They pay him $32 million and say, we're not paying him $32 million. Let's trade him to the Mets. Let's trade him to the Yankees. Let's trade him to the Dodgers. One of those teams could take on the money. We'll take back the prospects. Option B, they win the case, and they're paying him $19 million this year. Now Skubal's pissed off. Boras is pissed off. The Tigers will stand no chance at re-signing him. Not like they're going to re-sign him anyway because they're cheaping out. Now you have an angry guy going into his free agent season, pissed off that he didn't get the money that he wanted. Now, I would assume Skubal's a professional. He'll go into the season, but you just don't know how these things play out. When you play with people's money like that, you don't know how things are going to play out, especially before a lockout season. Because now, what Scott Boras and what Skubal are thinking in this whole thing is, I'm going into 2026, and if I pitch great, I'll be 31 years old heading into 2027. We might have a lockout for an entire season. Now I'm going to be 32 years old, another year under my belt. Not sure how the arm's going to fare after missing an entire season of throwing to professional live batters all season long. You could go play in other leagues, but it will never replicate being in the major leagues. It will never do it. You don't know how people are going to come back after a lockout like that, missing an entire season. So at the end of the day, the Tigers are playing with fire. Skubal's playing with fire. And I could see a scenario where Skubal just says, screw you. If I lose this case, I'm not pitching. Let me get into the prospects in terms of what it would cost for the New York Yankees and the New York Mets, right? So let's go to the Yankees' top 10 prospects. We're looking at all these guys here. So Lombard being their number one, Elmer Rodriguez, Spencer Jones, Cunningham, Kilby, Hampton, Now, if you're trading for Skubal, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you're a Yankees fan, if you're trading for Skubal, you could take Lombard, you could take LaGrange, you could take Rodriguez, you could take Spencer Jones, and you could take Chase Hampton. You could take all of them off the board immediately. They're all going to Detroit. These top four, plus somebody like a Hampton at number 8. That's how that trade is starting. And like I said before, sorry guys. So if you're a Yankees fan again, and you're seeing your top 10 prospects I'm putting right in front of you. If you want Tarik Skubal, prepare to lose Lombard, LaGrange, Rodriguez, Spencer Jones immediately off the board. These top 4 guys are off the board immediately. Now, if you want to replace that with a Ben Rice, if you want to replace that with a Dominguez, and take maybe, I don't know if Dominguez's value is higher than Spencer Jones right now. Spencer Jones seems to be the higher prospect, and people are soured on Dominguez, but I don't see it with Spencer Jones personally. I mean, at some point the Yankees have to call him up. Lombard seems to be the untouchable in the Yankee system, but if I'm the Tigers, I'm not starting a trade without George Lombard Jr. being in that deal. So if you're a Yankees fan and you want Tarik Skubal, one of these, you're going to have to part with a few of these guys, maybe in addition to Ben Rice, if you want to trade for him. Now you want to get in on the Mets side of things. Let's look at the Mets now compared to the Mets just lost Sproat and they lost Jet Williams. If you're a New York Mets fan and you still think that there is a chance that the New York Mets can acquire Tarik Skubal before opening day, as unlikely as it is, you're going to have to start the conversation with McClain and Carson Bench. You're not trading those two guys if you're the New York Mets. So that's why I don't think that they could acquire him at this point, especially after the Peralta trade. The Mets had to have gotten some wind that it's going to take a lot more than what they gave up for Peralta, obviously, but those two guys plus 5 or 6 more top prospects. So if you're take Bench and take McClain off the board, you're starting the conversation if you're the Mets to try to intrigue the Detroit Tigers. You're starting it with Jonathan, Reamer, Ewing, Clifford, Elian Pena, probably Jack Weniger, who's rising up the Mets board very quickly. 5 of these guys in the top 10, you're getting off your board immediately if you want Tarik Skubal. At least 5 of your top 10 guys are going back to Detroit. Maybe you could entice them with 4, and I don't know, do you throw in like a Kodai Senga, or do you throw in like a Francisco Alvarez? I don't know how the trade would work out, but be prepared to hurt if you want to acquire Tarik Skubal. Now, for the Mets and for the Yankees, very simple, right? This is how you... Now, if you're a Mets and Yankee fan, it's very simple at this point. Wait for him to be a free agent. He's the one taking the risk. The Detroit Tigers are taking even more of a risk by hanging on to him. The Tigers are the ones at fault here, and it's not even close. They have to trade Skubal before opening day because, God forbid, something happens to his arm throughout this season, and they're trying to play that game. We're going to be competitive. We're going to go to the World Series. We're going to buckle down. We're going to double down. If Skubal gets hurt and misses a couple of months or God forbid, misses the season, you get nothing for him, and he walks away. Now, if you're Detroit, again, they're handling this totally wrong. They're handling this and Boras is behind a lot of this crap as well. They know they can't win a negotiation battle with Boras, but Detroit is playing this very stupidly. So, again, that's where we stand with Skubal. That's where we stand with the Mets and Yankees. Again, guys, if there's smoke, there's fire. The Mets and Yankees are very interested, along with the Dodgers, in acquiring Skubal. And here's the thing, too. There's only 3 or 4 teams that could actually acquire Tarik Skubal. And it's the Mets, the Dodgers, it's the Yankees, it's the Phillies probably, depending on what they want to spend, and possibly the Blue Jays. So 4 to 6 teams are the only ones that could actually get Skubal, especially if he wins that arbitration case. So, guys, stay tuned. We might have more news on Skubal coming up soon. Share, like, subscribe if you got this far in the video, and I appreciate you guys watching. On to the next one.